What's going on there, guys? Good afternoon, good morning to some out there. It's the Earthmaster here on this Saturday, November 26, 2022. It's about 10:40 a.m. out here along the west coast, and the latest earthquake shows a 2.1 over here in the Mediterranean area, just north of there. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Overnight, we did see quite a bit of activity ramping up here along our quiet zones, and that includes areas around the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, the Japan Trench, and more specifically, the Mariana Trench showed a pretty good uptick in earthquake movement overnight on the eastern side here of the Filipino plate. That's going to be this area that holds quite a bit of trenches and subduction zones. We've seen the largest so far looks like a 5.6 coming in late last night, but there's been quite a few 4s and 5s, including another one up here, 4.9, just on the subduction side on the plate boundary. So not quite down into the trench zone, but upstream. You can kind of see the deformation there of the oceanic crust due to that trench, due to that subduction zone. This area right here has been relatively quiet over the past 2 weeks with very minimal activity, considering all the activity in the 7s and the 6s that we've seen throughout this area. Looks like we're finally starting to play catch up here now to the north, so be on guard for this area. The zone right here around the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench is one of my more watched zones for a potential larger quake, more than 4, more than a 5-pointer, and more than a 6 probably for this area. But also keep an eye on this zone here around the Filipino plate. Things very active there recently, overnight. All right, what else we got over here? Also outside of Taiwan, seen some movement with a 5.1 at 39 kilometers. This one coming in just a little bit ago, just over an hour ago. We're starting to see that westward pressure migration, but this area has kind of seen a little bit of movement here over the last couple weeks. So I think if anything, this region right here needs to be watched more so than this area to the west. Okay, up here around the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, definitely seen some activity ramping up here over the last day and last couple days here. Nothing major yet, but definitely noteworthy to watch some of this activity just to the south here and also to the north end of the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench with a lot of strain built up here in this area. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to accumulate enough strain to produce a large earthquake, and it's been absent for a little while as far as any major quake goes. I mean, if you watch these earthquake maps enough, you'll know the hot spots, the zones that have been seismically quiet, and this zone is one of the big ones that's been very quiet. Also up here along this area of the Aleutian Trench, I know last year we had an 8-pointer, but over the last couple months, this has been very quiet as far as anything above 4.0 or 4.5 level. So that's definitely on the watch list as well. I don't think they're going to see another 8 up here, but you never know. I mean, certain segments of the Aleutian Trench have not seen any large-scale activity in a little while. There's the 4.9 off the coast of the Vancouver Island range, 4.9 at 31 kilometers deep. And, of course, right offshore here, we have the Cascadia subduction zone, but that's not where the Cascadia stops. This is the area that builds up the strain. And then, of course, the further you get on the map here, as far as the eastward movement goes, the deeper down the subduction zone goes. So it goes well underneath the North American plate, a considerable distance. Of course, that's how you get a lot of this stuff here along the Pacific Northwest, volcanoes and mountains. A lot of stuff built up due to that subduction zone. But yeah, just kind of popped up last night. Not a super odd quake, but it is in an area that really hasn't seen too much movement, specifically for this area. If you go up north here just a little bit more along the area of the plate boundary, back before the Cascadia subduction zone, of course, we get earthquakes there, and a little bit to the north. And this area right around here, it looks like around the Seminole Seamount and areas within the zone have some fracture areas out there in the oceanic crust. You can kind of see them scattered out there. But then again, this area right here is the cutoff zone. I believe that is the cutoff zone here for the Explorer plate. Maybe it's right here. Let me see here. It's one of those two. We'll have to look at that. But either way, a little bit of different forces being at play here along the plate boundaries compared to the length of the Cascadia here, where like I say, we don't really see earthquake activity on it or down into it too often here at the locked area. And I remember reading a couple articles here how the Cascadia will just basically go when it comes to the full release of the potential that it stores here, and that could be a 9.0. It normally doesn't show signs of, like a couple fives and maybe some sixes popping off. It just goes. Unlike areas around the Japan Trench here during that 2011 earthquake, that big one out there, 9-pointer. I think they had some fives and sixes and some sevens, and then big one hit. Cascadia is a little bit different. We don't really see a bunch of sixes or sevens, but then again, that's the article, that's the statement that these geologists make. But I wasn't here back in 1700, so do we really know? If there wasn't maybe some foreshocks prior to that? So I guess we'll find out. Who knows? Could be in our lifetime. It's been 322 years since this one produced a full rupture. But I think the tremor has a lot to play with it as well. That's why I pay close attention to the tremor along the subduction areas of the Cascadia subduction zone. And now that's going to be down dip here about 35, 45 kilometers from the subduction zone level itself. From where it starts to subduct, down dip is where the tremor takes place. And yesterday there was none, zero. So sometimes it comes, sometimes it goes. Real quick check here while we're on the PNSN network. Let's go ahead and check out the Mount Rainier seismograph for any volcanic activity. I know they've been having a little swarm of earthquakes around the region over the last couple weeks, past couple months. It seems to come and go. Nothing major. During last week, it was probably about the heightened time as far as the magnitudes and the multitudes go. Still some very small microquakes. These are interference here. This looks like it's the 4.9 that had struck off the BC or the Vancouver Island range, showing up on the seismograph. And some other smaller quakes here as well, but no major swarming going on. Just a lot of little bitty tiny ones. And some of those, I think they got quite a bit of snow up there as well. So some could be some ice quakes. I don't know. A lot of times that does show up on the seismographs. Okay, California. What do we got going on here? 2.4 near the Mariposa area of California. Coming in just right now. Looks like about 8 minutes ago. Wow, USGS is on the ball today so far. Of course, that's probably a preliminary earthquake report, which it is. Automatic status. 2.4. Doesn't look like anybody felt it. It is somewhat deep, 18 kilometers deep. Now that's all subject to change depending on how they review this earthquake. But either way, 2.4 coming in. We also seen a pretty good swarm of activity up against the creeping section here of the San Andreas Fault, the plate boundary. Sees quite a bit of tremor slip, kind of like a, not tremor, but tremor is not the word for it, I guess. Oh man, I can't think of the word, but either way, about 5 earthquakes. The largest one, a 2.8 coming in yesterday. We did see another one overnight, and also this morning here, 2.4 and a 1.8 in this area. So, well, 2.4 is going to be this one. Take that back. Looks like a 1.8 and a 2.3. There we go. Within that same area. The Bay Area has seen a little bit of movement as well on the Hayward Fault Zone. That's another dangerous area. And I'm not talking about the city, but I'm talking about the fault systems that run through this area. A lot of population density here and potential for some large quakes on these couple segments. 2.2 outside of Berkeley, 9 kilometers deep. Long Valley supervolcano over here showing a 0.9, very small microquake. And as we head down south, very spotty activity throughout the Ridgecrest area and Southern California. Got a little bit of swarming here overnight, it looks like, a 1.2, 1.5, and a 1.3 just off the Brawley seismic zone. We have been seeing a little bit of creeping movement here, migrational movement here of the earthquakes up towards the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. Right now, just those couple small earthquakes overnight, but going to watch that pretty closely. If we start seeing a major swarm out here, definitely need to be on guard. Earthquake, a couple sixes out there, looks like within the last 24 hours here in this area, just off the Elsinore Fault zone. Aside from that, movement into the Baja area as well, 2.2. Nevada still seeing some movement across the Mina area and the Candelaria Hills. That area has been showing some activity here over the last few days or so. Of course, this is that zone that's seen that 6-pointer here back in 2019, I believe it was. Took a trip down there. Was it 2019? Maybe 2020. There was a 6-pointer out here. I took a trip down there to investigate what was going on, and man, a whole lot of desert out there. Dirt roads and all sorts of weird stuff, but couldn't really see any surface fractures from that earthquake that took place back then. But either way, there's still aftershocks continuing in that region. Out here in Texas, 3.0 overnight, looks like 8 o'clock this morning outside of Pecos. And some activity up here in the beautiful state of Oklahoma, south of Enid. Looks like the latest one, a 2.0 near Dover, Oklahoma. Nothing going on across the New Madrid zone. Just for verification, we'll double check that here with the University of Memphis. It's the Center for Earthquake Research and Information. They got seismograph stations, all sorts of them, across the eastern portion of the country here. This is a good site to monitor if you want to look at seismographs in these zones. We don't normally see a lot of earthquake activity. A couple different areas do see some movement. Down here around Elgin, South Carolina, get some swarms on occasion. And the New Madrid seismic zone here, and the red triangles and the red broadband squares, those are all monitoring stations across this zone. So we're just going to pick one here and see what we have for earthquake activity. Again, sometimes we see little events like that pop up on the charts, but I don't believe those are earthquakes. Certain stations here have some outside interference. Now, if they were earthquakes, you can see how close. Look right there, nothing really showing up on this map, but you can see how close these seismograph stations are to one another. So if there was actually earthquakes going on within this region, or even locally here to this area, they would be showing up on other seismograph stations because there's a lot. But some stations here have some type of interference, it looks like. That includes just blips of who knows what. It's hard to say. But the majority of the stations here across the region, no earthquakes here, at least within the last couple hours. And again, we'll check that later tonight. University of Memphis there, pretty good site to monitor. All right, Caribbean area, got one earthquake here outside the Dominican Republic, 4.0 coming in late last night. Far as any activity goes around Puerto Rico, it's kind of died off, I would say. Aside from this one, about 10 earthquakes within the vicinity of Puerto Rico, and most of it's around our swarming area. This area does see quite a bit of swarming. It's kind of squeezed in here between a couple different subduction zones, so a little bit of lifting here of the land and some earthquakes that do take place on occasion around the Puerto Rico area in a swarm type fashion. South America region, 4.1, 4.7. I am going to double check that here and make sure. Looks like we're having a couple other 3s and some 2s there along the Peru-Chile Trench, mostly along the southern end. There in South America. Also here around Costa Rica, it looks like a 3.0 coming in. Pretty recent earthquake, 4.0 from yesterday. That was late last night, and I don't believe the USGS has included that earthquake. Still haven't got to it, so it's possible it could be below their threshold, I guess. Either way, it definitely showed some activity here across the region last night. All right, Alaska, there's that upward push of moisture. Not on the Weather Channel here. I'm just kind of yeah, doing earthquakes. This ain't weather. Denali here looks like a few earthquakes kicking up across the region. And let's see what we got for magnitudes. Kind of looking a little on the, not a whole lot of large quakes, mostly all 2s and 3s and some other smaller quakes across the area. But getting a little swarming up here just outside of the Denali area across the Alaska range. Not uncommon to see movement there. This here is a major fault system that runs across the area. You can see, looking at the topography of the land, how it's been warped and pushed along with the plate dynamics here. It's got a curve all the way up in this region. Pretty cool to look at. All right, Aleutian Trench quiet for now. The Big Island. Most of the activity today so far around the Pahala area, there's been quite a bit. I've been watching that on the seismograph station here called Hot Caves. There's a very small earthquake there, but I've been watching this line get pretty much flatlined when it comes to some of the earthquakes coming in. Hot Caves sits within this vicinity here, just outside of Pahala. So a lot of the localized earthquake activity will show up there on Hot Caves. Mauna Loa right now, not a whole lot popping off here. Looks like it's gone quiet for now, but don't let that fool you. One strange earthquake over here. I say strange because we don't normally see a lot of movement off to the way east here. 2.1, still automatic status review, so this could get removed completely depending on if it's a legit earthquake or possibly in a different location. So automatic status there for that odd earthquake. And let's see what else we got. The Tonga Trench, Kermadec Trench, New Zealand area, not showing a whole lot. Last earthquake was this morning, about 2 o'clock, 4.6 into the Tonga Trench area. And looking at the map here, looks like we've had a couple other earthquakes, though not listed on the USGS side. Some 4s down into the Kermadec Islands area, and just outside North Island, New Zealand. I've seen some 3s there as well, but the kind of the big picture, folks. I don't think I need to point it out. Look at that. We got a 5.3 just coming in. Hold on a second here. Not listed up here yet, but it's right here in our seismic gap zone. You guys see that on the map right here? 5.3 into the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench at quiet zone right now. So this whole area definitely needs to be watched pretty closely, folks. I've been saying it for a while, especially the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. 5.3 coming in. Let me see if it's been picked up on the Japan station. A lot of times this Japan station will pick up these 5s even if they're at a distance. But right now I'm not seeing anything being picked up. So, interesting. We'll have to definitely keep an eye on that here for the foreseeable future. That would be right there in this, right here in that zone. Let's see here. Let me check and see what EMSC has on that. Yep, right there, 5.3. Just coming. Actually, it looks like it came in about 10 or 12 minutes or so ago. And source parameters yet have not been reviewed by a seismologist. So here's the information that you can find. Of course, USGS doesn't have that earthquake up there yet. Notice that. So we'll have to wait for them to review it. That's the yeah, that's definitely in that zone of our watch area. 60 kilometers deep around the Kuril Islands, the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench right up here. Goodness, that thing always comes in. All right, so a couple zones there, folks. For one, obviously up against this area. If you remember last week here, major uptick. I'd say over the last 2 weeks, major uptick around the Samoa Tonga area with plenty of 7s and 6s. Seen a 7 over here around the Solomon Islands area. Last month we had all that activity across the Java Trench, Papua New Guinea with 7s and 6s all over the place. We had minor adjustment up here around the well, Manila area and Philippines seen their fair share of earthquakes as well. So these quiet zones, that includes Mariana Trench northward, and into the trenches up here, are all catching up, and that's definitely a sign here of some movement across the Pacific Plate northwestern section. Now it's possible we could just see a whole bunch of fives and some fours across the area. I don't know if that's going to be enough to release the potential strain that's built up here, but definitely be on guard here across this area. Keep your eyes open across the northwestern section here of the Pacific Plate. Definitely looking pretty active. I'm waiting to see if the USGS is going to issue that earthquake yet, but they're not. So it could be an hour, it could be tomorrow. So we're not going to wait all day on the USGS. So we'll move on. Yellowstone National Park, not seeing a whole lot of activity. There was a little small microquake activity around the Madison River area this morning, looks like over the last couple hours, but nothing major. No magma movement, no doom and gloom, just some very small microquakes across the area of Yellowstone. And let's see, I think that's about it for that. Let's go ahead and check out solar weather real quick, see what we have. We did see a little bit of heightened KP index there over the last 24 hours due to a CME that was facing, or Earth directed at us, should say, from one of these sunspots over the last few days. Wasn't really forecasted, but it kind of came in. As far as the forecast goes right now, a little bit of unsettled conditions continuing throughout the day, but it should calm down here very soon with the conditions going back down to around 0 or so. 40% chance for a C flare. And let's take a look at these sunspots, see what we got here for today. We got a little bit of further growth down here with the this individual sunspot. It looks like it is kind of turning away from Earth. Be rotating out of view along the western limb of the sun very soon. So that one, at least possibly, could be sparking up maybe another C flare. But as far as the rest of these sunspots go, there's not a whole lot of potential here of any major activity, folks. Looking pretty dull in the solar weather department for now. But we'll continue to watch it and monitor it. Also got a coronal hole here, 51. A little bit better view here with the most recent imagery. Shows a pretty dynamic coronal hole. It's kind of looking a little bit larger this morning. It is center disk of the sun, which means this will be sending out some charged particles from this hole in the sun, shooting out some high-speed solar wind stream. Charged particles will be flowing towards Earth within after the next couple days, I believe. I'll definitely watch that. That should be geo-effective with that position of the coronal hole on the sun. So, yeah, that's about it, though, as far as any solar weather excitement goes. All right, folks, have a good day. Stay safe out there. We will chat at you guys a little bit later on. I thought my Earthquake 3D program froze up again, but looks like it's there. And let me check USGS again, see what they have. No earthquake yet on the map here, by the way. It is on the Earthquake 3D globe, but that includes the EMSC model in there as well. Looks like that may have gotten downgraded up there to a 4.9. Either way, it's still an earthquake, and it's a legit earthquake. We'll see what USGS has to say about that. All right, folks, have a good day. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe out there. A lot of craziness going on. Take care.